Welcome to the John Amanchukwu Show. In this episode, we will talk about the View's Sunny Hostin, who gets angry when her co-hosts begin to criticize DEI and race-based hiring practices. Diversity initiatives in corporate America. Is it a path to progress or performative theater? The View's recent discussion exposed some fascinating tensions about how DEI is not doing so well in the workplace and how Democrats are admitting finally that it may have cost them the election. At the center of the debate is former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, a DEI hire himself, who suggested that poorly implemented DEI training programs may inadvertently drive voters towards Donald J. Trump. Yeah. Watch this.
So as Trump continues to pull initiatives that promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, everybody knows it as that, former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg weighed in with a take that surprised some people. Watch.
What do we mean when we talk about diversity? Is it caring for people's different experiences and making sure no one's mistreated because of them, which I will always fight for? Or is it making people sit through a training that looks like something out of Portlandia, which I have also experienced, and it is how Trump Republicans are made. If that comes to your workplace with the best of intentions, but doesn't actually get at what actually matters here, what's actually at stake.
So do you agree with him that DEI initiatives drove voters to Trump? And what else can be done to make sure everyone is represented on an even playing field?
Did DEI drive voters to President Trump? Of course it did. We've been saying this the whole time. Are Trump voters against civil rights? No. Are they against racial unity and harmony? No. But many Americans felt that certain DEI initiatives led to a distraction from core business values and work relationships. This diverted the focus from core business objectives, such as building a strong company culture and rewarding hard work, towards issues like pronoun usage, accommodations for transgender individuals, and an emphasis on sexuality. This led to a feeling that hard work was being devalued. There was a growing perception among Americans that certain DEI practices introduced a Portlandia-like cultural shift. White people were feeling guilty for being white. Blacks went from striving to be seen as equals to sitting in trainings and being told that they are slaves and victims. Suddenly, white liberals are experts on the black experience. Kind of like watching The View. If not Portlandia, it certainly was like watching The Twilight Zone. Watch.
You know what I think, and
what do you think,
I like Pete, of course, but I think he got that so wrong, and I think it was so tone deaf, considering
Which
what's
part?
going on. All of it. I thought all of it was tone deaf, because what happens is when from 1776 to 1965, you have basically white men in charge of everything, right? Women, people of color, we're left out of just equality of opportunity,
Yes,
that sort of thing. And I think when that equality starts popping up in terms of diversity program, equality now feels like oppression to those people who were at the top of the ladder, not necessarily because of their merit, but because of their identity, right? And so in my view, when you look at the stats, it is really clear from McKinsey, actually, a consulting firm that Pete used to work for, that firm found that companies with more diversity financially and socially outperform those that are less diverse. So the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, it makes sense. And I think we can all agree that we want our workforce to reflect what our world looks like.
I think he does too, though, don't you?
No.
Sunny Hostin calling someone tone deaf? Is that the pot calling the kettle black? I think that it is. Sonny Hostin strongly disagreed, pointing out that from 1776 to 1965, white men dominated leadership positions, and current equality efforts can feel threatening to those previously privileged. She cited McKinsey research showing companies with greater diversity outperform less diverse competitors financially and socially. I beg to differ with her point. I think that we have made great strides in this country for all people, but this is what I mean. She doesn't know that. Even though she's making millions of dollars on prime daytime television, I don't see a white male on this platform. Watch.
I think he does, but my question really, I think we need to reframe the discussion. If the problem is these programs, what is the solution? Should we just then depend on the benevolence of Elon Musk and white billionaires to hire women and people of color?
No.
Should we just depend on corporations to, on their own, make the workforce more diverse? They didn't do it from 1776 to 1965.
Right.
Why do we think it's going to be any different?
I think you hit on something important, which I genuinely believe most Americans, and I think everyone at this table, thinks that workforces, organizations are stronger when there's diversity and representation. What he's getting at, I think, is how do you actually achieve that? And I think that in this era, there's been almost this DEI industrial complex. And it's funny you mentioned McKinsey, because a lot of consultants get hired by big corporations to make people feel really good that they're achieving diversity because they put on a seminar, because you watch something, because you said Latinx instead of Latina. And I don't know that there's actually huge metrics I've tried to find, because you can cherry pick and you can see them, that is actually working.
So here we are. Take a look at this graph. This graph is very telling. White people account for 76.1% of chief diversity officers. You heard that the right way. 76.1% of chief diversity officers are white. 7.8% are Hispanic or Latino. 7.7% are Asian. 3.9% are unknown. And Black or African Americans only comprise 3.8%. And American Indian and Alaskan Natives, 0.7%. What does this graph tell us? It tells us that our diversity needs diversity. Watch.
What I would love to see is culturally people wanting to have diversity that's across the board, socioeconomic, racial, that people's lived experience, their religion, so that workforces do look like America. I think that's a perfectly reasonable place. And I think that's what he was saying. I don't think he's saying that we need to end any programs that include more people.
I'm going to take this from a different angle because, okay, so Pete Buttigieg here was at the Institute of Politics, which is run by David Axelrod, our colleague and friend, respected political strategist, and he was responding, Pete Buttigieg, to a question by Axelrod, basically saying that the DNC had turned into a caricature of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Here's the part that is vexing me constantly. It seems to me every time I turn on the TV or go on social media, I see Democrats tarring and feathering themselves, self-flagellating themselves, talking about all the things that they do wrong and that they did wrong. And look, I think there's a place for that, but we've now had a month of Donald Trump, and I don't understand why every Democratic strategist, elder, sage person with a platform isn't out there laser focused on getting the American public to understand the horrible suffering and cruelty that Donald Trump has brought onto the American people.
Well, I want to jump in here because the David Axelrod conversation you're talking about was in reference to the DNC winter meeting that happened over a few days, and I just want to show a quick clip of what went down.
You fight on when your government is doing you wrong.
You may vote for 2 males, 2 females, 2 of any gender, okay? Nope, you can't do that because we've got to balance. You could vote for 1 of any gender, okay? Or no, non-binary gender, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I hate to laugh, but what in the world was that? That song, and did you see the confusion? 1 gender, 2 genders, non-binary genders. They believe that there are 70 plus different genders. You can't keep up with this mess. It's insane.
So I
What
think
about it?
what he's referring to is they're losing sight of the spirit of what DEI was by doing this in this fashion. And while people are reacting because of the times we live in, it's so politically charged, so many people are so frustrated that people are pushing back on DEI that they're not taking a minute to pause that maybe DEI itself needed improvements in its actual application. We're seeing a lot of things. One was New York Times staged fake interviews with diverse candidates. Wells Fargo, the New York Times reported it. Yeah. Sorry, just to be clear. A woman or a person of color, after the position had been filled, to check off their boxes of minority inclusion. That's not helping anyone. So a lot of the problem is that
that implies
Lily
that the woman
Zhang
wasn't qualified for the job.
There was no job. But Lily Zhang, who wrote for Harvard Business Review, reputable place, she's a critic. She says she's a DEI strategist and consultant. And one of the things she said is, DEI was never focused on the results. It was just the commitment to the results. So companies would hide under this idea of we're so progressive with not a lot of benefits or not always benefits to the people they claim to be helping. So some of the ways you change it, Sonny, you've been asking all day, like what are the things?
What's the solution?
So she has solutions. She's saying focus on measurable results like pay equity, physical and psychological safety, holding network events, blind hiring. There are a lot of things that you can
Blind hiring, that makes sense.
Right.
And now, take a look at this. We have this Black Enterprise article. Now, Black Enterprise is a reputable media outlet, and they reported that Black people only comprise 4% of DEI positions in the workplace. DEI is a failure, and it was created solely to discriminate. Against who? To discriminate against conservatives and people who hold to traditional Christian values.
Isn't that kind of merit-based? Isn't that the whole argument that DEI is against?
Well, she dug in because she studied, she's a consultant on DEI for companies for 10 plus years. And what she's saying is, regardless of the
hiring is the opposite of DEI.
No, that's not true.
The results, just for anyone listening still, the results of this are saying that there were people there that needed help with the diversity, the equity, the inclusion, bringing people on. The pay disparity still exists. They aren't getting the jobs. So not every critic of DEI, which I am one of them, says that it can't do better.
DEI programs make sure that the most qualified candidates, traditionally excluded from opportunity, are given the chance to compete. So this notion somehow that blind hiring could work, I think that's
wouldn't
something.
it take the race or identity out of it, and it would be purely based on what you put forward?
But it's not about merit, because the people that are in these DEI programs are already the best of the best.
But she's saying that companies end up doing tokenism rather than helping by the way they approach DEI.
I've had people in corporate America be like, lean into the fact that you're an Arab American. I don't ever want somebody to be able to look at me and say you were a DEI hire.
Because Donald Trump is now the president and has gotten rid of DEI in government and is coming down on corporations to do the same, are getting rid of DEI. So we're going to see within the next 6 months, within the next year, if there are less people of color or more or the same in the C-suites and the corporate offices.
There will be less.
But I'll tell you what, there's a lot of diverse people like you and me who have power with our pockets.
That's true.
And so if Target gets rid of DEI, they're getting rid of me.
That's true.
Okay.
Do you see the problem here? They can't even decide whether people should or shouldn't be hired based on merit. This is incredibly counterproductive. But here's the question. What is the solution? Well, first of all, what's the problem? I'll be the first to say that racism exists. Sexism exists. There are some demographics that fare better than others. Is that all because of inequities, or are there other differences, decisions, and choices? Don't we already have laws that address discrimination in the workplace and pay inequities? Maybe DEI failed because DEI isn't needed. Again, it's the ultimate blackface. Representation is good. Authentic representation is better. It isn't just about checking boxes and pseudo-empathy. It should create opportunity, but it shouldn't be about replacing the qualified with the unqualified. It shouldn't cause division. It should foster unity. It should not produce chaos, but it should establish order. Thank you, my friends, for watching this episode. Do me a big favor and like, share, comment, and subscribe. And tell me, am I right or am I wrong? Am I weak or am I strong? God bless you, and God bless America.